Hey Chad and YouTube. I just got done watching your video about the compression test on your Savoy. And instead of just trying to write a lot of comments, I thought I'd just make a video. It's a lot easier. So I'm just going to share some of my thoughts on this. Maybe give you some more things to think about. I think you're on the right track on diagnosing it. The compression test readings that you got, I think you got anywhere from about 100, and it looked like they were mostly about 115, and you had one that was down about 85 or so. It is kind of significant. You really don't want more than about a 10% variance in cylinders between all the cylinders. But the one thing I remember though is that, you know, that's an old engine with no telling how many miles on it. It may be whatever, I think you said 60-something thousand or maybe 160-something thousand. But you gotta remember, those, an engine that old is probably gonna have, you know, probably needs a valve job, and rings maybe kind of, you know, weak here and there. So I wouldn't worry too much about that right now. I just keep it in the back of my mind that that's the readings that you got. The thing like I said, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, so it's not really going to be too cohesive, I guess. But the thing I noticed is that you did not mention that the plug on the low cylinder looked bad. You said you had one on the right bank that did look bad, but it wasn't on a bad cylinder with low compression. So that's not, I don't think that's anything. I don't think that's anything. That's good, really. But the thing I thought about, I remember after I got done watching that video, I remember that you said that what was going on initially was South JK brought it home one day and it was steaming out of the oil filler cap, and that when he put coolant or water in it, it apparently went straight into the oil pan. Well, that's serious. You know, it's a serious leak. But the thing is that if it was a head gasket, it would have to be blown between the cylinder and an oil passage, which is very, very, very unusual, because, you know, especially with decent compression readings like what you got, that means your cylinders and your rings and everything are in pretty good shape. So, you know, you can't just, with the piston as tight as that fits in there, you know, you got 3 rings on there. You know, you got a compression and an oil scraper and an oil control ring. You know, even if you poured water in the cylinder, it's going to sit in there. It's not going to be able to just go right through the cylinder into the oil pan. It may, if you let it sit several days or a week, but, you know, we've all seen several engines that filled up with water and they still had water in the cylinder. So, you know, I wouldn't be too concerned about a head gasket right at this point. What I would think would be happening is what you're kind of thinking, I think, and what everybody's thinking, and maybe the other people are thinking also. But I'm sorry, I'm being silly. But you mentioned about the intake gasket and the front timing cover, and what Chad's thinking about, everybody else that's watching this, what Chad's looking at is how, if you pour coolant and water into the radiator, into the coolant system, you fill the coolant system up, how is it getting a pathway into the crankcase? Well, we know it can't go past the cylinders, the rings, because there's just too much seal there, and it's very unlikely that it's finding that much of a direct path into the crankcase, you know. So, you know, like I said, any of this, it could happen, sure, yeah, but what may be going on is what Chad's talking about when he's talking about the timing cover. Now, that's something I'd look at. That's probably the first thing I would look at. I'd take the fan, all that off, and dig into that. On a 318 Chrysler, both the old one like he's got and the later style, the post-67 style, it has the block, and then it has an aluminum. They're mostly aluminum. I ain't seen one that old. It may be steel, but it's probably aluminum. well, it's a housing that goes on there. It's called a timing chain housing, timing cover. It's kind of about 2.5 3 inches thick, and that's where the timing chain is in there. And it's got coolant passages through it, and then at the front, behind the fan of the front of the engine, you've got the water pump where that mounts, and it's kind of mirrors that. It's got two coolant passages run into it. So anyway, there's two good leak points right there, because if one of those seals where it goes into the block were to fail, then it would do exactly what Chad's car is doing, which means you put coolant in it and it runs out of that seal right there, that gasket, right down past the timing chain into the crankcase, and that sounds a lot more likely to me than a head gasket at this point. Now, Chad and everybody else, something to keep in mind about that, if that's indeed an aluminum housing, timing cover housing, you have to remember those things are bad about getting eaten up with the coolant and whatever else eating them up. You know, they'll get pinholes in them, the gaskets go bad, and they can just get eroded around the coolant passageways. That's a really, really, really common problem, even with newer engines. But one that's that old, you know, closing in on 50 years old, who knows? So you're probably just going to be very wise to dig into that first and look very carefully at that and see if you find the problem, because if you get a hole in the timing cover housing, you'll have big issues with it. So, and the next thing to be is to look at the, you know, if you don't find anything going on with the timing cover, then of course you probably want to go ahead and pull the intake gasket, the intake off, and see what's going there, because you got 4 passages, you got 2 in the rear and 2 in the front, and that can cause the same kind of problems. Sometimes it'll burn coolant, which is not really that's not really accurate. You can't really burn coolant. You can just ingest it into the cylinders and it'll steam. But there again, though, if you got a gasket failure between the intake and the lifter valley right there, yeah, man, as soon as you put coolant in, it's going to go right through into the engine. So that's where I think you're very wise. I think you're looking in the right direction. I would condemn a head gasket as the very last thing if you can't find some other problem in the other 2 areas you're talking about. A head or block can crack, but those are very, very thick engine. I mean, they're very well built, very heavy, a lot heavier than a later model 318. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. It's possible, but based on what you find, I hope, like I said, I hope you can find your problem before you have to get into the heads, because that's a bigger job, and that's a lot of work you can avoid. So I'll be following this with interest. And also, Chad made a comment on one of my videos. I was talking about something about a car I drove every day, I guess my daily car. I think about the Mustang, and he said, Chad asked me, he said, have you ever considered driving an old car as your daily driver? And of course, if you watch Chad's videos, you know that that's all that Chad drives is old cars. And that's smart too, really. I mean, avoid a car payment. So I'm gonna issue and take Chad up on a challenge if he's interested in this. I'm gonna issue a challenge here to him. There's no rush on it, of course, you know, because he's got to fix some issues with his car, and so do I. But at which point Chad gets his Savoy running well and drivable, if he gets it where he can drive it for 5 days, the whole week, wherever he goes, then I'll do the same on my Plymouth out here. I'll drive it every day. I'll make a video in the morning when I'm leaving at the mileage on it. Make a video, you know, I'll show a newspaper or something with a date on it, and when I come home, you know, or whatever, you know, we'll figure it out. But 5 days straight. So, because that's the challenge. So, Chad, if you're up to it, once you get that car running good, you know, let's do it, man. You drive yours for 5 days straight, and I'll drive mine for 5 days straight, wherever we got to go. So that'll motivate him a little bit, and it'll motivate me a little bit. So stay tuned, everybody. We may have a little interesting little friendly challenge going here if Chad wants to do it. Have a good one, everybody. Chad, good luck with it. Please be sure to make more videos if you have any questions. You know, that's what we're all here for. We've got, you know, I'm not the only one that knows about stuff like this. So you got a lot of good information here. Anybody will be glad to help you. So please surely do post back when you got anything you need to know or show or whatever. Have a good one.